Thank you for joining us. Today, George Meyer, CEO of Kahler Slater, will present a sneak peek into the Bradley Symphony Center, the new home of the MSO on West Wisconsin. George will show renderings, explain the wall move, feature photos of the intricate restoration, explain the acoustics in the new hall, highlight the contemporary additions, and show the new marquee and Art Deco features. The Bradley Symphony Center will be a combination of old and new, bringing the grandeur of the past together with modern conveniences and technology to create a world-class concert hall for Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra. Kahler Slater, the local architect who worked with Calatrava on the Milwaukee Art Museum addition, has been building Milwaukee for over 100 years. George has provided leadership at Kahler Slater for the past 30 years, navigating highly complex local projects for the firm. He has provided executive oversight for projects such as 833 East Michigan, Milwaukee Athletic Club renovations, BMO Tower, Carl Jewish Community Campus in Whitefish Bay, Kimpton Journeyman Hotel, Marriott Downtown Hotel, Marriott Renaissance in Wauwatosa, and Westin Milwaukee. As a downtown business owner, George is heavily invested in the success and revitalization of downtown Milwaukee and West Wisconsin Avenue. George is very involved with civic revitalization and growing the role of the performing arts and creative placemaking in Milwaukee. George is also a board member of UPAF, the United Performing Arts Fund. George is passionate about the Milwaukee community and as such is a member of the Westtown Association Board of Directors and Bid 21, the Downtown Neighborhood Business Improvement District. He was also named the 2018 Deborah Usinger Outstanding Community Partner by Milwaukee's Westtown Association. On behalf of Collectors Corner, it is my pleasure to introduce you today to George Meyer.
Thank you, Courtney. I hope everyone can hear me okay, Courtney. I can see you. I can't see everyone, but virtually we're all together. I do want to tell you I'm in Florida. We came down here to Sanibel last week, and we're having a hurricane now. So if you lose me, it's because we've lost power, and we will see if we can make the transition seamlessly. So I have someone in our office, Nicole from our office is listening in, and she can host the presentation and I can call in with my cell phone. So we should get through the hurricane, which was supposed to go away and came back today. So just for this call, I think, just to make 2020 more interesting for me. So this is a rendering of the building on Wisconsin Avenue. You can see the marquee for the Warner Theater. The name Warner will always be there because it's a it's historically important, and it will stay. But the symphony plans on referring to this as the Bradley Symphony Center, not the Warner Theater. So it'll just be almost like artwork on the wall rather than the name of the building. And the South Addition is here on Wisconsin Avenue. There's a large assembly space on the first floor and the second floor, and I'll take you into those as we go through. This is the rendering that we did several years ago of the stage and the restoration of the interior. It looks a lot like this today. So it all started in 1931 when the Warner Brothers opened a series of theaters across the United States because they wanted people to watch movies, which before 1931 people didn't watch movies. Marcus's at some point became the owners of the building, and they split the theater into two, upstairs and downstairs, and it was a twoplex from 73 until 95. And in 95, they closed. So you have to understand, this was two 1,000 seat theaters on top of each other. And if you remember back to 1995, that's when we wanted to go see smaller theaters with more options. So used to have one or two movies playing for 2 or 3 weeks, and now there's 20 movies playing every weekend. So in 2000, we were asked to do acoustical tests of the Warner Theater. They proved to be very successful, and that there was some talk about moving the symphony in 2001, but with the recession, that changed, and it became it waited until 2016 when we started the design work. The contractor C.D. Smith started construction in 2018. The wall move, which is a critical point, happened about a year later in August of 2019, and a year after that, we're going to be ready to open at the end of this year. So here's some pictures before, a little context to where we are. So the Grand Theater is right across from the Grand Avenue, now called the Avenue, very close to the Wisconsin Convention Center, and very close to the Marcus Center. And people have asked about parking. There's a lot of parking questions. This entire parking structure is available. There's a parking structure right over here at the 310 West Wisconsin. There's a parking structure right across the street. And there's really lots of surface parking around that, which is a little not as, there's actually just as much, maybe more parking at the Warner Theater than at the Marcus Center. And these parking structures are really designed to move cars out more quickly than the Marcus Center lot. Cagney movie, we don't know exactly when this was taken, but we really hope to see all these people back on the streets again soon. This is a picture of the theater. So the original seats were removed, but the current seats have been removed also. This is what it looked like several years ago when we had the sushi building on the corner. It used to be an Arby's here. You can see the stage is in this location. Gives you an idea. The 25-foot stage is way too small for a symphony orchestra, so that's why we had to move it 35 feet. And we basically moved the wall from here about to the line dividing traffic in 2nd Street. So about halfway out into the middle of the street. And then the blade sign had been removed and it had been renamed the Grand Theater. So we're, one of the reasons the project was successful is the National Park Service allows people to have historic tax credits equal to 20% federal, 20% state. And that combination of 40% of the cost of restoration resulted in about $18 million in tax credits on the project for the project, and that was a big part of the financing for the project. Here's some old pictures from 5 years ago of the lobby. This floor is a terrazzo floor. It's all being restored. The carpet's been removed. The Juliet balcony overlooking this room, and you'll see some pictures that show you how much of this room is shining. The amount of shine in the building is, I didn't realize how shiny everything would be when it all got cleaned. And so you can see the detail, and you have to hand it to the Marcus Corporation because I think less than 10% of the interior had to be repaired, and most of it is just cleaning. So, and it's really, when there was a roof leak at one point, Marcus's came in and fixed it very quickly. It didn't cause a lot of damage. It's just amazing that this building sat empty for 15 years and people didn't come and steal the valuable, the plumbing fixtures and the copper, and they really preserved it. So it's been really a remarkable gem, a hidden gem in Milwaukee. So here's that stage, which was 12 feet back from the stage was 12 feet deep. And the proscenium, we think this is the tallest proscenium in a concert hall in the United States, which should give us much better acoustics. It'll be better than the Marcus Center, but it'll be one of the top acoustical spaces for concert halls in the United States. So you can see the scar where Marcus Corporation divided the theater into lower level and upper level. They built a new projection room downstairs. The old projection room was up here. And here's the stage. Now, back in the 30s and 40s, there would be a double feature, and at the intermission, there would be a vaudeville act, a 1 or 2 person vaudeville comedy or poetry reading or something. That would happen on the 12-foot deep stage. You can see some water damage here that's all been repaired. And so in 2000, we removed these seats and we built a stage extension. So we built the stage out to here so that we could get the whole orchestra on the stage to play in the room. And they did acoustical tests and they proved to be a phenomenal acoustical results. Here's the stairs and the elevators that go up to the office tower. Back on the interior, this spins. This was taken in the theater before restoration began. You can see what it was like to watch a movie. It's kind of like the Oriental Theater. If you've been to the Oriental, this is the way you would go to see a movie at the Grand Theater. And they really, the Warner Brothers wanted going to a movie to be a profoundly different experience than what you'd have from being at home. And having these concert halls across the United States allowed people to experience movies in a completely different way. The bathrooms, this is the women's because of the pink. You can see some of the toilets. This is a white toilet, but there are even pink toilets in these stalls. We preserved some of the panels on the wall. We did not keep the toilet partitions. This is the men's, of course, in green. You see some water damage. The National Park Service does not require us to recreate the toilets the way they were. In the 1930s, there was no ADA code. There were no elevators accessible. There were elevators up to the office tower, but no elevators for the Grand Theater. So the people who came to the theater, and there were like 12 toilets available. So people were chronically dehydrated. No one was in a wheelchair. Everybody took the stairs. It was a much different experience. The one damage that the building had years ago was a flood in the basement. And you can see this was in 1997. A water main broke in Wisconsin Avenue, flooded the basement with clear water, not sewage water. And it happened on Friday night, and it was discovered on Monday morning when the Marcus employee who checked the building 3 or 4 times a week went through. So they drained it down, they cleaned it, but it left a permanent scar on the wood paneling, and we think we'll be able to remove that permanent scar. So I'm going to talk a little bit about theater design, and we took a lot of inspiration for the theater design from the musical instruments and the orchestra in the hall. So you'll see the fiddleback wood from a violin. You'll see some of the brass analogies, the black and white. You see these things coming through in the design. So in terms of acoustics 101, you can see the size of the stage and how much we expanded it. This 35-foot addition gave us room for the orchestra. It also gave us room to walk behind, because there are a number of times during a performance where people have to have access all the way around the stage. If you've been to Eline Hall, the conductor always comes out on stage right, which is not the traditional location. The conductor should come standing on the stage. It should be on your left, stage left, which is here. We're gonna be able to recreate the standard entrance for the conductor at stage left. We did push out a little bit into the hall in this location. The stage kind of comes out a little bit, and then there's a number of acoustical assistants behind the stage. So I can go through those for you here. It was a very important, we had to have 175,000 cubic foot of space above the stage, below the proscenium. That was a critical component from our acoustician, who wanted to have that volume for the sound to mix on the stage. And the volume mixing on the stage is important because that it mixes the sound for the hall, but it also lets the musicians hear the music from the stage, which is important for them creating their own, becoming part of the music that they're creating. The old Warner Theater went all the way back to this wall. And they had built, I showed you earlier, the sound booth, the projection room that they put in here, but the seats at one point went all the way back to here. We pushed that forward so that we created a hard wall here. There's even glass above the wall to keep the sound underneath. And the bass tones tend to get trapped into balconies. So if you're going to stay, and you notice at Eline Hall, the balcony has a space behind it where the sound can go up behind the balcony, behind the box seats. But if you go to the Pabst or the Riverside, avoid sitting back here because the sound is not very good in the back. And so we eliminated these seats. We pushed the back wall forward, and we have more room for the bass tones to move about the hall. we created a little removable pit or fillable pit so that the sound people could sit here, sound and lighting people could sit here. In some cases, the orchestra needs a different location. We have preserved the ability to project images above the stage. So we'll be able to do Harry Potter and Star Wars on stage with the projected movie along with the orchestra playing the songs. There's follow spots and stage lighting all around. We do have, if you've been to E-Line, you've seen the system that comes down on top of the orchestra to keep the sound focused on the stage. We'll have that same cloud here, and then this cloud will also be able to be moved. We've added, one thing we don't have at E-Line Hall is this variable acoustics piece. So all of these little yellow areas, we are able to regulate how hard and soft they are. There are draperies that we would move across here, draperies across the top. There's a drapery behind here. These panels are on gliders that move. There are doors here that open. And so we can change the acoustical qualities of the hall depending on the performance that's being given, and the orchestra will be in a narrow range, but if they had a band on stage, if they had some other performance, we could, if it was an amplified sound, there'll be no amplified sound for the orchestra, it'll all be acoustic. But the amplified sound needs a different acoustical environment than the orchestra does. That'll all be possible with these acoustical, variable acoustics here. We also have this is where the piano lift is. And then the back platform is also motorized lifts, hydraulic lifts. So they will be able to change the layout of the stage for the orchestra at intermission. And you'll notice at E-Line, they don't really bring platforms in to raise up certain areas. Everybody stays the same, and sometimes there's empty spaces on the stage that are then filled for the second act. They have much more control over the environment here. We can also take the cloud and rotate it up into a out of the way position. We do not have a fly loft per se. So E-Line Hall is able to fly scenery up into the fly loft. And they also have a side stage where actors and actresses can come off stage. This is a concert hall that does not have those two things. No fly loft, no side stage. If you picture the ballet doing Nutcracker and all the ballerinas running off stage, they go into the side stage, and you can't, that would all be locked off or not available at the Bradley Concert Hall. So the interior restoration was done by Conrad Schmidt, and Conrad Schmidt is a famous Milwaukee company, and I believe this is Conrad himself. Started in 1889. Just an amazing group of people, amazing technology that they used. A lot of it was chemicals, but there were a lot of Scotch-Brite pads, cotton, and Q-tips. So you can see some deterioration on this mural, which has all been repaired. And you can see this is all tarnished. You can see the cleanup. So here's what's happened. They've gone in. It's mostly grime from the city and tobacco smoke that they were removing. And this is clean, not clean, clean, not clean. I mean, someone obviously spilled a soda or something, or splashed a soda up here at some point. They were able to remove all of that, and they look like new today. So you can see some more of that detail. And it was just hours of laborious cleaning by Conrad Schmidt people. This is that wall. There's a stair that goes downstairs I showed you before where there was a watermark in there. They were able to remove, I guess the good news is that over the years, the wall had been heavily varnished, and the varnish is what bubbled off, but it protected the wood. And so now they're able to get all the varnish off and restore the wood. That process, here's more of the same. Someone has graffiti on this, that's all been removed. They use a combination of techniques, but this is like a hot iron and wax, and they were able to press the fibers of the wood back together to get back to a smooth surface, and then they'll stain that. It's a combination of burl wood and tiger wood, which is unbelievably beautiful when you see it. So you can see this, it was all black before, and now you can see the burl that was in there. So this is this square here has been restored. You can see the varnish that has yet to be removed at that edge, and they haven't really worked on the tiger wood yet. It's going to be amazing. So construction. People always like to see, how did you guys do that? So the first thing they did was cut a big hole in the back of the stage to get all the trucks and equipment into the building. And then there's a hole in the floor here. And then they just started pulling out. So there's demolition that's happening in the basement. They're bringing gravel in to fill in some of the low areas in the basement. There's a sky lift that's sitting on the floor. They had to remove some of the old catwalks that are up above the stage. You can see the old unrestored interior. So one of the early things they did was build a wall underneath the proscenium so that they could work below the proscenium. Oops, went too fast. So here's that wall that went in, and visqueen up here. So when we took the roof off of the stage and began to move the wall, we needed to protect the inside of the hall, because you don't want these materials to freeze. You want to have an environment where people could work. We also needed to rebuild the entire edge of the balcony. It was not set up for the box seating that we needed. The best seats in the house are right here, and it wasn't set up properly. We needed to add another row and change the configuration. So that was done early. Then we moved the wall. So it was August of 19. It was on the news. I'm sure most of you have seen it. 1.2 million pounds of wall. And how did we do it? This is oversimplified. This is the document that we submitted to the National Park Service to show them that we could do it. So National Park Service doesn't allow modifications to a primary facade being on a street. And we said, we're not modifying, we're just moving the wall. So this has never been done in the United States by the national and approved by the National Park Service. So we had to build these A-frame braces to hold the wall, and then we moved the A-frames and the wall out, secured the top, filled it in, and then built the rest of the building around it. And I think the National Park Service said, well, if you want to try it, go ahead and try it. But if you can do it, it would be approved. And we had to ask that first. If we were to do this, would it comply? Because it's a modification to a primary facade. But basically we said it's not really modifying, it's just moving. So you can see some of the detail on that wall. Very few people know that there's a series of light bulbs that go up on these three arches. All these light bulbs have been replaced. The track's been replaced. And so on 2nd Street, you will see these three arches. It's going to be spectacular. The balconettes needed to be removed because they needed to be repaired. We removed the cornice at the top because to move the wall, it's a lot easier to move if it's just a plane. But with the cornice at the top, the vibrations could hurt that. So we created this X bracing to support the wall. There are columns in the wall at these locations, 1, 2, 3, 4 columns plus the perimeter, 6 columns. This attaches to that, and then the brace is connected to this W frame. This is the day of the move. You can see each of these guys is eyeing the steel beam that's gliding. The yellow ones move, the brown ones stay in place. It's all being controlled back here by these 2 hydraulic trucks. This bar of ivory soap is what made it all work. So they would move it 3 feet, and then they would take ivory soap and rub it on the beams. Then they'd move it 3 feet. The rams were 3 feet long, so they had to keep moving the rams to move it 3 feet. That's me right after the move. I think I'm sitting right here too. And here's those A-frames that supported the wall for the move. And I should be able to show you this. So you can see the activity at the move. Here's the truck with the hydraulic power. Here's that screen that was built to protect the interior. Moves 3 feet. I think they were able to do 3 3-foot moves an hour. So this is right after the move. They built the entire foundation outside of the building and then rolled the wall onto the new foundation. This is actually a couple weeks afterwards because they removed the diagonals and they're starting to build the block wall in behind it. Then the scaffolding came. So soon after the wall moved, they started to scaffold. They scaffolded the historic lobby and they scaffolded the entire interior. I think about half the scaffolding in the state of Wisconsin was sitting in the Grand Theater. It was completely covered in scaffolding so that Conrad Schmidt could work above. Quite an extensive network. It was there for about 9 months. And then this is what we call the dance floor, which is right up underneath the ceiling. And so we were able to walk around there and look at, and Conrad Schmidt was able to restore. They installed light fixtures up here so that they could better light the hall. You can see the dirt right in here. So this horizontal surface was full of dirt, loose dirt, and then stained materials that had to be removed. These are temporary lights that are just hung in there. Here's another example. So this brownish color is the cigarette smoke and city grime that's gotten on that. This is the restored part. They just worked their way around, and the scaffolding came down about in September, and you can see what was left. So these are photographs from 2 weeks ago. This is the stage in an almost finished condition. The clouds are not in, the acoustical materials there, the chambers for the acoustical carts are there. This will be seating area. So when the chorus performs with the symphony, the chorus will sit here. There's 150 seats here. They perform about 20 or 30% of the pieces of the performances are with the chorus. When the chorus isn't singing, you'll be able to sit in those seats as a patron and watch the show from the balcony. It's the only place you can see the face of the conductor. And then this is the area that's been dedicated to the future pipe organ. So a proper concert hall and a proper orchestra has a pipe organ. Mark Niehaus is hoping that that we can get money donated for the pipe organ. It makes sense to wait because the last thing you want to put into the hall is the pipe organ. It doesn't do well with construction debris and dirt and whatnot. So it was it makes sense, and it can be installed at any time. So we'll finish the hall, clean everything, turn it over to the symphony. Performances can begin, and the pipe organ can be installed at any time. Some of the details. This will be for the pipe. Some of the pipes will go in this niche, which is this niche. You can see the platform. This is the opening for the piano lift. This is the 2 pieces at the back that move vertically. You can see the structure. These will go up and down. This is the basement, and here's that line. I don't have a photograph yet of the water damage being erased, but they're working on it. And you'll see you don't really see it here because it's up above. They've gotten the rough. The early restoration work is getting through that. So this moves into the south addition. So the ceiling is partially installed. So every ceiling tile that had a sprinkler head or a light is installed. The other ones will be coming in soon. The wood wall's been installed at the back. This is the bar. And then this is the oculus that looks up to the Haas mural. And this is a spiral stair that connects the lower level and the upper level. So every great concert hall has a great stair, a grand staircase, and this will be the grand staircase. We call it the harp stair. It was really modeled after a harp. This is just dirt. It will all come off. The glass that we're using it's south-facing glass, and we wanted to put essentially a screen in the glass. And we chose to put the names of the conductors whose pieces have been performed by the MSO before this year. So all the conductors' names are posted, are printed in the letters are about 3/4 of an inch high. You can see them when you're close to it, and when you back up, you notice that something's there because it does cut the glare. So it's like a tint, if you will, but up close it becomes the material, and you can still see the street through the tint, so that's good. The ceiling slopes up. And we call it a crescendo ceiling because it's much higher at the corner than it is at the old theater. So it opens up to the street and opens up to Milwaukee. Here's the stair, which is it's fully constructed. I think the stone steps are on there. They've been covered in plywood. One of the last things they want to do, they want to finish the ceiling, paint what needs to be painted, and then install the floor, and then they're done. That'll all be happening in November. This is the entrance into the hall, and this is an up-close view of the stair. The stair down. Again, the crescendo ceiling. So the same wood wall is upstairs and down. Now some pictures of the first floor. Again, this is 2 weeks ago. So if you've been to the Marcus Center, it's difficult to actually get a drink at the Marcus Center at intermission, and I think we've solved that problem with several bars. The Pabst Theater and the Riverside solved their problem too. They've figured out how to move more drinks, and just like at a football game or baseball game, there's a revenue stream attached to the food and beverage sales. We won't be having hot dogs and popcorn in the hall, but you'll be able to take a drink into the hall. So that'll help the symphony and help the hospitality there. You can see the stair over here in the corner. Here's the view of the stair, the wood wall, and then the window out on the street. So the street actually becomes a part of the space. So being Mark Niehaus from the Symphony has always said that the Marcus Center is so isolated from the community. You don't feel like you're part of the city when you're there, which is a positive in some ways. You can get into a completely different environment. You can cleanse the thoughts of the day and get into the theater. Mark wanted to see the addition on the corner be much more transparent, much more a part of the city. This first floor and second floor can be rented out for corporate events, weddings, whatever people want to do in these spaces, it's available. So he wanted it to be more connected to the street. And we've accomplished that with the glass wall. This is the view on a rainy day a while back. This is the Haas mural I've talked about. So the Haas mural was painted by Richard Haas in '82, right when the Grand Avenue opened. He was painting this, and it's a reflection of the old Pabst Mansion that had been torn down at Water in Wisconsin. So it's actually a reflection of a past. You can see the gimbals, the sign here for gimbals, GI. This is the tower of the Pabst Mansion. So it's not just a reflection, but it's a reflection of the past. And we wanted that to become part of the interior, and I'll show you that in the rendering. So you can start to see the transparency. So if you're at an event, you can be seen from the street. If you're passing by, you can look in and see what's happening at the MSO. And if you walk by the Marcus Center today, you don't know if the ballet is playing or if there's no one there during a performance. This will look much more active all the way through. You can start to see what's happening. The middle of November, the temporary barricade will come down. The Warner sign, I thought it was going to be illuminated. It's going to be illuminated soon. I thought I would have had photographs of the lights on the theater signs, but it hasn't been turned on yet. I think they're going to turn it on in the middle of the night to make sure it works before they tell people it's being turned on. So the renderings, this is the, here's the Haas mural again. This is the grand room in the South Addition. You can see how at night it starts to glow. And so this was a conscious decision to make it more opaque during the day and more transparent at night. And the frit on the glass with the names of the composers helps that happen. Here's a close-up of the letters. Here's a little animated drive-by. So I show these now after showing you the construction photos, because you can see how it's all going to be once you move in. So there's that stair, the bar at the back, pass right through the doors. It's really quite a hospitable space. And then you go to the stair. Okay, here's the materials that we're using: the wood, the red carpet, and this is the finished rendering. So we could see, here's a little combo that's playing. Maybe this is a Milwaukee event. You're really part of the city when you're in this room. And then this is upstairs, obviously a wedding. Rendering. So this is the rendering coming in from the old building and tower, looking at the stair, the harp stair, and then coming around to look up at the Haas mural. And there it is. So 1981 it was. So that's how it started. All right, I think with that, I'm open to any questions. Courtney, did you have any questions from the group?
If you'd like to ask a question, you can put it into the chat. Thank you, George. That was fascinating. We'll see if we have questions coming through. Can you see the chat, George? The first question is 2nd Street going to be a pedestrian space?
Combination pedestrian and vehicular. I think I have to get out of. I can't see the chat.
I can ask you the questions, George.
Okay. So both. So the plan is that I could actually go to, sorry for the high-speed tour of the slides. So it's a one-way street south. So this is 2nd Street right here. The star is on the building. So right now it was a two-way street before construction, and we'll make it one-way south from Plankinton all the way to Michigan. This is one-way south now. This will become one-way south, and the city's actually, the street work was not part of our contract, but part of the city's contract. And when they narrowed the street, they actually eliminated or reduced the curbs, and so it'll be a much more pedestrian street. It'll be what's called not a speed bump, but a speed table, which means that you kind of come up onto this, you go up on a speed bump to get on, and you stay on that speed bump for the whole width of the street. There'll be bollards, there'll be traffic calming elements that will slow down traffic. There's a parking structure right here, which people enter and exit this parking structure. So we will have cars on the property, but it will be a combination of both. And it'll be a very narrow street, and I think it'll be very comfortable. Oh.
Okay, next question. What is the estimated cost of the organ? Do you have any idea?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know. Mark Niehaus has talked about an orphan organ, which would mean that there's a number of churches and theaters that have organs that they're not using, and he's hoping to get those pipes donated and then hire someone to pull the whole thing together. I don't know that. I should know that, but I don't know the total cost.
Okay. How high are the ceilings in the addition on the first and second floors?
I think we're 12 foot on the first floor, and it goes up to 20 feet on the addition. But it's varied. Again, I apologize for the high-speed tour. So this is upstairs. I think this goes from 15 to 20 on the corner, and then downstairs, it's just a 12-foot ceiling.
Okay. George, are the letters on the glass conductors or composers or both?
Names of the composers. I'm sorry.
Composers. Great. Next question. Can you talk a little more about the ivory soap?
So the whole wall was essentially picked up about a half an inch and set onto rollers. And these rollers, it was a box about like 18 inches long by 5 inches wide. And it had a series of 6 or 7 rollers in that. Very strong steel, and it rolled on the beam. And the ivory soap makes it, reduces some of the friction associated with the rollers going across the beam. And so if it's 18 inches long and it's going to move 3 feet, it can really go, to 36 inches from, it needs to have 36 inches of travel. And they always covered that in the ivory soap. So, and it was a very heavy, it's almost like there were some people who put like a quarter on the track, and then the quarter got squished like it, like on the railroad tracks when I used to put, don't tell anybody, but I used to put pennies on the railroad tracks at home when I was young. And so after the train goes by, you've got this slug that's all flat. They were doing the same thing with quarters on because of the, whatever it was, 625 tons of material being rolled over it. So it's a friction reducer, basically, is the ivory soap. But the whole thing was riding on ivory soap. It just seemed crazy that was the thing that made it all work better. And these the moving company who moved it, International Chimney, moved the Cape Hatteras lighthouse. And so these guys move a lot of different buildings. And there was, when they moved this wall, they broadcast it live on Facebook, and then the next day they were back in Philadelphia moving something else. These same guys got on a plane and moved to the other place. So so I was watching them a little bit on Facebook to see all the things they were moving. They put a building on a barge and ran it and moved it to the other side of town on the river. So it just, and when we talked to them about moving the wall, it's like, oh, that's no problem. It's just, the only problem was that it wasn't a box. They like moving buildings because they're dimensionally stable as a rectangle or as a cube, but this was a plane. And so they were a little worried about how do we keep if it became out of plumb at any point, it was at risk, and a house wouldn't really come out of plumb, but a wall could. So plumb being vertical. So, they do this stuff all the time. So it's pretty amazing to see them at work.
Okay, next question. What is the seating capacity?
So there's 800 seats on the first floor, 800 seats on the balcony, and 150 in the choral loft. So that's 1,750. Marcus Center is 2,300.
Will dirt and grime accumulate in the future, or have conditions changed? And how will the building be kept clean?
So conditions have changed. There'll be no smoking in the building, which was not the case when they opened. And that was a lot of the nicotine stains. The city, we're not as industrial a city as we used to be. So there's not as much smog, and we're not burning as much coal. The city's cleaner than it used to be. So there'd be less dirt getting into the building. The mechanical systems will be much tighter. The building's much tighter. So it won't have all this. The air infiltration will be purified. And so we won't have as much grime in the building. Saying that, it'll still get dirty. And I think at some point they'll need to clean it, but that might be, another 50, 60 years away. So I don't think it'll get dirty as fast. And so this was 80 years after construction completion in 1930, 85. So I think we have at least another 85 years before I have to do another cleaning.
Okay.
I often wonder why my house doesn't stay clean. We don't bring any dirt in, but it still gets dusty. So I don't know why.
Me too. Okay, George, which direction is the theater? Is it from west to east? If you enter from the south on Wisconsin Avenue, then turn left or right?
Okay, so here's Wisconsin Avenue. You enter from the south into the grand hall, or into the grand reception room, and then it turns 90 degrees, and this is the stage. So you enter walking north from Wisconsin Avenue. When you get to the back of the theater, you turn right and walk east into the theater. So it's an L-shaped building. I don't know if you can see my hands, but the lobby is north-south, and the theater is east-west. A lot of theaters are like this, where you walk in, and then, like a church, you would come in from the west or the east, and you go into the nave, and then the altar's at the end. In this case, they've turned it so that you enter on the north-south axis and you go into the theater going towards the east. And I think it was because of the site they had available. If they had a long, Erie, Pennsylvania has a very similar wrap and wrap designed Warner Theater, and it is a straight shot right the way through the block. They own the middle of the block. They came in on what was their Wisconsin Avenue, and they went right out on Wells Street on the other end in Erie, Pennsylvania. But we had an L-shaped configuration, and the building, there was a large major building on this site when the Warner Theater was built, a 12-story office building, and they had built around that at the time.
Can you review the parking?
Oh, parking and financing are the two that always come up. So, I can do this. So, the owners of the Avenue, which is the Boston store was here, that's becoming an office building and apartments. This is the entrance to the food hall on 3rd Street. And then there's an office building. Grafe Engineering just moved their offices into this location. Kahler Slater's offices are here. The Plankington building is here. The entire south half of the blocks from here to here is a parking structure, which is used a lot during the day and mostly empty at night. So there will be dedicated spaces near 2nd Street in the Avenue parking structure for people to walk less than a block over to the theater. This parking structure, which is owned by the city, I think they have about 600 stalls in that parking structure. Those are right across the street. You would cross the narrow street and come in on Wisconsin Avenue. This is the blue building, 610 or 310W, 310 West. This parking structure serves this office building, but it's mostly empty at night. So this you can walk a block and a half from the parking structure to the main entrance. And then there is a parking lot here that the Symphony controls. And that's what they're going to use for valet parking. So if you were to drop your car off at the front door, they'll take your car and put it into this parking structure and then bring it back out and pick you up at the front door. So the valet parking will be handled with this surface lot.
Thanks,
I
George.
think
We
there's
have a
3 or
question about
4,000. I think there's 3 or 4,000 parking spaces within 3 blocks of the site, which is very similar to the same information on the Marcus Center here. If you really want, you can probably still park at the Marcus Center and walk 4 blocks back, but it's a different issue.
Our next question is about the restrooms. Will there be more ladies' toilets than men?
There are. So in the original building, I wish I have a toilet slide I didn't include. There are substantially more. And so in the existing Warner Theater, there were about 18 stalls. So it was unbelievable that 2,000 people would use 18 stalls. I mean, you would think chronic dehydration is the only answer. And so we've eliminated. So one of the reasons for the addition being the way it is, with the big addition to the south and the addition to the north, was to get elevators and toilet rooms in. So we have on each floor, we have new toilets, and we have far more toilets for women than for men. And the ratios are better than the Marcus Center toilets now. Okay.
When do they expect to have performances?
So the current plan is to be, we're going to be complete in mid-December. The current plan is to start performances in January for season ticket holders and broadcast them. Start performances in January, broadcast them live to the season ticket holders, and have season ticket holders be able to sign up for to come to a concert. The capacity is 1850. They may only put 200 or 300 people into the hall. So we're a season ticket holder. We may choose, a certain day in February. That's our one day to go. We'd go and we'd be able to see the performance socially distanced, and enjoy the hall. But in January, I could watch a performance on a Zoom call live during the performance. I'm not sure how many new that was the season ticket holder plan. They may very well also sell additional tickets to the online streaming. So now that said, it won't be a full orchestra. A full orchestra could be 85 musicians and 150 chorus members. But they won't do that. They won't do those performances. They're selecting performances where they can have a 30-person orchestra socially distanced on the stage. We have to keep the orchestra just as safe as the patrons, and the stage. We have to put some sort of screens up and some sort of way to prevent people from. You can imagine how much spit there is from a French horn. So that's all. I don't want to say any more than that. But we have to provide a space for keep the musicians safe.
Okay. Next question. What is happening with the office tower?
We're using about 2/3 of it, and 1/3 of it is ready for development. I think it's about 8,000 square foot per floor, but with 3 elevator shafts, 2 stair towers, and toilets, it becomes a very inefficient office space. And the symphony, we did some things to free up some space for the symphony on 2 floors. We've got the music library up there. We've got the symphony needed some space for storage and whatnot. It's happening on that floor. Up above is unfinished space that could be developed, but right now the focus wasn't on developing space for other people. It was for taking care of the needs of the symphony. So it could become something in the future, and we're using about 2/3 of it now for the MSO. Okay. And they're going to be moving. Furniture is beginning to arrive now for the office tower.
Next question. How will the theater be for operas?
I think acoustically it'll be very good. There's no, so the opera would have to occur with the orchestra on stage with the opera. So there's no orchestra pit. So I know the Florentine has performed with the symphony where the symphony's on stage and the operatic singers are in front of the stage. That can work very easily. But to do an opera that where we would tell the story, I don't think there's enough room on the stage with the orchestra there also. So it's more, I think it's more a series of soloists or operatic singers in conjunction with the symphony. But I can't hide the orchestra underneath the stage the way you could in an orchestra pit. There is no pit.
Okay, next question.
Acoustically, it'll be fantastic. So I think it'll be a great place for the opera to perform, but they have to perform with the symphony. Sorry.
George, do you know anything about the parking, the valet parking fees and how that will work?
I don't. There's been talk about, making it simpler. Can you, is there an app? Is there a way to, to pre-order? I don't know what's happened with that.
And you don't know if it'll be complimentary?
I don't know. That would be great. I would vote for that, but I don't know.
Don't know. Okay. I think this may be our last question. Did the pandemic suggest the need for enhanced ventilation systems?
We already have a very good ventilation system. So I guess I should say yes, but it was already a very sophisticated system. And one of the reasons is that in any performance hall, you want the air to move very slowly. So there's some places are designed to be high velocity systems where the air is just blown everywhere. And that makes noise. So there's a hum and a whistle and everything when you do that. We have a very low velocity system, and that system inherently is more, it consumes more energy. It has more filtration. It's already very well situated for trapping airborne particles. So there are some things we added after the COVID concerns to even purify it more, but we were in a good position before. All the new construction is much cleaner air than older construction, just because of the way it is, just in general, especially the expensive systems. I mean, I'm sure, a small little office building wouldn't have it, but the sophisticated systems are already set up for that, to reduce the airborne particles through filtration.
I think that was our last question, George.
Okay. Oh, great. I'm sorry I can't see everybody.
No, I know. Thank you so much. As our member Sandy said, this has been completely inspiring.
Good.
And thank you to all of our members for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you can see the chat, there's things coming in, George.
Oh, I see it now. Yeah. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Happy to do it. Take care.
Good rest of your day.
Yep. Bye-bye.